you, like this house is a story building of, I think, like 3 or 4. When they were building it, did they tell you people to jump and climb it? The able people, no. They built staircases so that we can easily access it. And the place is fine because there is also an elevator, which will make it accessible for persons with disability. What about this room? You people have been here yesterday. You are watching me the way I was struggling to climb this place. If I was in a wheelchair, how will I climb this postodium to come and talk? It will not be possible. Maybe I'll be left somewhere there to say my own view, which I will feel not too comfortable. Now, I want us to like open our hearts and embrace persons with disability. They have every potential, they can help in every way. And we, as advocates of persons with disability, have gone far. But we want the government at the same time to put into consideration that we have every policies. We have the National Act on persons with disability. We have the social protection. We have the UN Convention of Persons with Disability, 2016. We have National Senior Citizen Center on rights of the elderly, the old, the aged, the senior citizens. Yesterday, somebody was saying she's 56. She's 56. I kept looking at her. This morning, I was fortunate enough. We had our tea break together. I came beside her. I said, Madam, we are the same age. I am also 56, a person with disability. Think of it. How I struggled throughout my life. I will fall, I will rise. I will fall, I will rise.
Thank you.
Before COVID-19, I had 2 trailers of rice. Now, I'm back to square one. All these rice, I gave them out to my person with disability. They were locked up for many days, no food, nothing. Now, I want the government, all the stakeholders, the MDAs, the CSOs, to have the big heart to embrace women with disability.
Thank you.
There is ability in disability.
Thank you so much. I had to give her the time. You know, we hardly have opportunities where people have a platform to, even though I believe we should do more solutions, but these are opportunities to give platforms to pertinent issues such as what she's mentioned. So the enablement is what we need to look at, because part of their women are also in this value chain. And we need to enable them to be able to do what needs to be done, so that by the time the Chamber of Commerce and the various organizations start to build up people, they do not exclude them. I personally have an experience of one of our members who is also living with disability, but she started on 2,500 Naira training, a shoe factory. And she's been a champion for quite a while now. But she also has challenges she has to go to Aba to get the materials. And so we're saying, how can we develop those in the industry that she requires so that it's actually reachable? And then her products were fantastic. I wish I had them on display. So there's no way, at least on my part, that I believe that we will not involve people with disability, because I don't see them as any different. Yes, they have challenges. So the enablement that is required is to ensure that they can actually move around, those who can, to encourage them, train them in ICT so that they don't have to move around for those who cannot. So I think we should, those who are here and have the opportunity to speak to those in power, let's that be a focus. Thank you very much, ma'am. So I want to ask you that, how do you think government can give incentive to women now that we identify? We've talked about, segregating. We've talked about building up capacity. We've talked about enablement. How will government take based on all we've been doing, we need to see impact. What are the first steps next steps that you would recommend?
Thank you very much, ma'am. My name is Dr. Fumilola Williams Daudu. I'm the president of Akoko Chambers of Commerce. I'm the state coordinator of NAWOG. Ajia is my boss, and it's an honor for me to sit with her. I'm a medical doctor and a farmer. Coming to the issue of the government, I think from this room, because I like something that is practical, something that we can do. I think we are the women movement because we represent each unit. Before we leave this room, I thank the organizer for what they've been doing. And I know that we can take a decision right from here by having a cluster. Because once we move together, we can move far. If we go individually to the government, they're not going to take us serious. So if we have classified, you are a producer, you are an aggregator, you are the one that brand. If we are classified into those groups, we can know what do we need. Because before we go to the government, we have to know, number one, we have an identity, then we know what we're looking for. We can now move with that in groups. And cooperative, even right from here. And if we have a cooperative, we have like, I will use NAWOG as an example. In Ondo State, we have our women, we have cooperative, we call it savings loan group. So savings loan group, in which case we contribute weekly into that account from what you're having, and it's at 2%. And that 2%, you can actually borrow twice of what you have there. And the collateral will be one of your members that has something more than what you're looking for. That will be your guarantor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Those are some of the practical things that we can do, and we can take it right to the value chain and say, okay, so who are the bean producers? We can do that, and we can do that today if we would, have set up a table where you can actually list your names, and we can start to form linkages with the other countries, because we're not here for Nigeria alone. We're here for the whole of Africa. And so that is one thing, and good that you mentioned that. One of the things that I've been opportune to do with OWIT and Borderless, where women who are interested in moving trade across export, and Africa is now the focus that we want to take on. And so we have various OWITs. We have at least 4 in the continent. We have AWEP. We have at least 20 in the continents. Why can't we get our sister AWEP organizations and talk to Borderless and start to move our women through all the things we've talked about today, while they're developing the base, while the Chamber of Commerce is developing the base and looking for input? We can't do it alone. That's why I talked about incentives from government. But she's right, we cannot go as individuals. We need to go with a plan, and we need to go with a strategy, and then as one voice, we can move it. We must develop our value chains. I'm going to throw this open. I think 3 questions. Madam, we need people to ask some questions, and if we can get, okay. Yes, I'm being told time is out. So 2 questions. So are there any members of the audience who would like to ask?
Please, if you have a question, just your hand up, then I'll come to you.
Good afternoon. I want to appreciate the organizer of this program. My name is Juma Shekarov, CEO Anti-J Cosmetics from Niger State. My question, I like the discussion of this since in the morning to this afternoon about issue of women, especially the rural women. As I'm standing here, I have a cooperative with rural women. We are into shea butter processing. From the north, from the peak to the north, down to the butter, then value change. We are encouraged. I have a lot to say on this issue of women in rural area. When we are talking about data, e-commerce, and other things in the morning, we are encouraged in our cooperative from the government that we should form a cooperative body the way our doctor have just analyzed, that we need to come as one body before we can reach the government. Now, we were able to put ourselves together, put the rural women together. We start somewhere. And we are able to fund the cooperative. We have our CAC. We were encouraged to go ahead and do some other registration. To the extent we even have export certificate for that cooperative. But to our surprise, government was to give up assistance to entrepreneurs. And they told us the cooperative was part of those incentives from the government. We applied. But at the end of the day, we were told that a cooperative, women cooperative body cannot export with cooperative certificate. Now, if you are in our shoes as a woman from rural area, what did government have for us? What did government have for us? Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Any other person, please? I know someone has a contribution here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Standing on the existing protocol, my name is Ruth Eroimodu. I'm into agribusiness, stroke, cosmetics, and a little farming by the side. I'm also into music. Hallelujah.
Sorry.
My contribution is this. She just talks about part of what I wanted to say, and I'm really happy. I feel happy. 2013, I was privileged to be trained on shea butter and coconut body and face cream. Hello. Before then, I was already into shea butter packaging. I networked with the national president of Women in Agribusiness of Nigeria, of Africa. Then the national president, I was privileged to work with her direct on 2 of her products I introduced to her at that time. Then I was the production manager while I was working on my CAC, if I buy her push. My stand is this. After that training, I came up with something very wonderful from what I was taught. In fact, it was the Ghanaian that actually came to train us, and it was one day training, and there was no certificate, but what I got was enough for me. Now, after the training, I came up with my own standard. I mean, the quality of what I wanted, because this practical we did spoiled within 1 month. But after 2 years, I could do a body and face cream with shea butter and coconut oil, and it will last for like 4 years without taking it for testing or anything lab. I was using it. My children were using it. My husband. Then I introduced my mom into it, who is 80 years this year. So I actually use that as a practical, sending one for her 1 liter. 3 years later, I didn't go home. I went home and I discovered the pep was still the same. Everything was still the same.
Madam, do you have a
Okay.
question?
Mine now is that what I'm really, because I know a lot of women are feeling what I'm about to say. Then I appreciate AEA for that training forever. I appreciate them. And one of the resource person I met later for another training, when she was talking about training, is in this hall we met. She have even seen my product yesterday. I was also trained again, having another certificate on that same thing on another level. I appreciate them. But now the registration, the certification comes in. What are we doing to actually help the passionate, genuine women, entrepreneurship women, a step forward to kind of, I don't know, remove the bottlenecks? I wanted to get everything done within 1 year. I actually carried myself to NAFDAC.
Okay,
Took
ma'am.
my, you know,
Okay, so how
please.
do we help to take you to the next level in terms of
not just that,
certification,
the women,
certification?
yes.
Okay,
What can we do, please?
thank you very much. There's a gentleman at the back, and after him we'll.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Honestly, this conference and workshops of this nature is not the first time we are hearing or seeing it. African women, Nigerian women doing the same thing. You can hear a testimony of that woman. And I want to assure you that the testimonies are all over the country and in Africa. So I want to urge elites at this our level, get down the grassroots. If you don't get down the grassroots, we are still scratching surfaces. That's the truth about it. The gathering before this one, the sit out before this one, somebody said something about having hubs at the rural level, the rural women integrating with the urban women and taking it national. I don't know how you can do that with our policies. Our policies should carry these issues of picking up that grassroots women until you get the hubs where these women can actually go and somebody is attending to them in terms of registration, in terms of standards. Most of these women cannot afford NAFDAC fees. They can't afford it. Even when they say gather for loans, at the end of the day, most of them don't get these loans. Nobody is talking to them. There are no standards. There's nobody to actually show them these are modern seedlings. They don't have it. So when we talk of after, this after must take roots from these grassroots people at the roots. Before you talk of exports, let's talk of the local ones first, because it is those local products that you'll be talking of after and exports. So please, let's try and do a lot of domestication with our talks and with our policies. You must domesticate it. Go move these forums, move all these talks. Go to the rural woman, pack them in that conference, talk to them, translate your talks and your policies in the language they can understand. Somebody says that in Africa, one lady said, the only translation that we get is the Bible in local dialects, and which is true. We need to try and translate it. Talk with them. They are the real farmers. They are the real people. We are elites. So until you get to that grassroots, please, that is the takeoff point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we need a producer's
There's one
Bible.
more hand. I don't know if you can take. There's one.
We need
here,
a producer.
There's one here.
We need a producer's Bible, but he's spoken the truth. How the producers are usually in the the grassroots. So with that disconnect that she woman, which is your name from today, Mrs. Tokwe mentioned, we need to close that gap, and it's through the BSOs and the organizations. The women don't need to come out. We can go to them. We can start to make create those hubs, mini hubs. As NGOs, we need to start. When the government see that we are doing something, they will join us because they have to get the accolades for it. So they do, and they have to be seen to be supported. So I think everyone is correct in what they're saying. But I'm going to allow our panelists, one or two of you, to answer to the question on cooperatives not being able to export. And the second thing was inclusion in our policies for aggregation, how we're going to do that. So, Dr. Williams.
Thank you. The issue of cooperative not being able to export, I think that's part of what we're saying, that if we have an export processing zone in which all the regulatory bodies, because being able to export, there are some one or two things that one needs to put in place in terms of standard. But in this room, because I like going with what is practical, we have some people that have been exporting. I met a young guy in one of our NASIMA program. And this guy said that he's been into sending locust beans to the US. But he does not, he just partnered with somebody who has been doing it and who has a standardization, all these things. And he has been able to export. I think we can collaborate. That's exactly what I'm trying to say in terms of getting the goods out of the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, our keynote speaker would like to.
Yes, so just answering her question or concern, I don't see any reason why a cooperative cannot export. There's something misplaced there that we need to interrogate, or whoever it is that told you, let us know. Because a cooperative should be able to. You are registered, fully registered. A lot of cooperatives all over the world, Kenya, we have a lot of these cooperatives, and they're doing really big stuff like exporting coffee and all of that. In China, in Singapore, there are cooperatives doing these things, in India. So I think there's something wrong around there. We need to look at it and see whatever it is. And honestly, the last thing I'm going to say is, if we ignore, in the value chain, the people in the primary producers that because the people are talking about at that primary level, if we ignore them at our own peril, because quality starts from there. It's not when we reach midway and I'm looking for who produced this in this quality. If it's not done from the farms, then we have jeopardized the entire process. So if we ignore them at our peril. We need to put as many programs at that level, first of all, so that we get it right. So it's important that we give it the attention it deserves.
So we'll just take Honorable Asha.
Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to say something about government. Again, we expect so much of government. Government design policies. Those policies are implemented by the practitioners. And when you show them a plan on how their policy is going to work, they will support you. But they will not be able to answer your problems because they don't understand your problems. It is only when you have shown them the problems through implementation that they can now put it as an amendment to the policy. So we have so much expectations of government, and we feel disappointed when government does not meet our needs. They make the policy. We, the practitioners, should go back and say, this policy is not working, and this is why it is not working. This is the way it should work. So, sometimes it's a two-way dialogue thing, and which is why our associations need to always give feedback to government. And then secondly, I think government is doing a lot. but it's very bad in communication. You know, so sometimes you have to go to different agencies to be able to find information, which is tedious, especially for a woman who is at the rural level. But there's so many opportunities that are also ongoing because they need to test their policies. So we just need to be able to find a way of getting hold of that information and using it. And let's not think that, you know, whatever government is doing is not going to work. Try it first and give feedback.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give one feedback. There are some bodies that we've sat on as organizations representing women in various levels. And we find that women are not inclusive. So that is something that I think we should take as a new fight. We've had them fight for women. Some of the people here have actually attended those policy reviews. And at the end of it all, women are still excluded. So that is a major issue. Women need to be put into the policies. It's not a case of going for these conferences, not such as this, review panels, and we talk about women being inclusive, and then they're still excluded. So, madam, I'm coming to you. We need those policies in place. We cannot do anything without, something written for women. We can't.
I think they are represented, but they're not enough. Really, they are not enough. It's very rare for you to find a government sitting without at least one female. It's not enough, I agree.
Policies?
Even policies, they're not enough, but you know, the steps are being taken and it's going to take a while. And then we have to continue the fight, which is why my case of a movement is still standing. We can't stop.
We won't
We
stop.
cannot stop.
We won't stop. And
Can I add
I
something?
would like to round up. I'm being, knocked on for time, but I'll give you just 1 minute, ma'am. Yes.
Hello, once again, going back to what Haja has just said, I think it's like she's trying to tell us we should put in more efforts, push our policies. Now, if we feel a policy is not working, what are we supposed to do? We come together, build our capacity. This is why we have to read. As activists, we must not sit back and keep waiting for the government. All our policies are in place. Let's look at them. Which ones are working? Which ones are not working? Then we sit together, build our capacity, and then get back to the government. We keep pushing, like she rightly said. I want to tell you that before disability law was passed into law, finally, we advocated for good 18 years, which I was one of the pioneers. I'm sorry to say this here. We advocated for 18 years. We need to struggle. We need to put in more effort. We need to read. Then we will find out where is the government supposed to come in. It's not everything that the government will come and say, okay, come. Like I told them, the director, Agric, yesterday, I told her we have CBN loan, and it is mandated that that loan should be given to persons with disability. We have been pursuing it for 5 years. The government did not say anything. And they are supposed to give us listening ear. Because whatever we are doing, we need a +1. We want to trade, we can't do it alone. So how do we get the funds? They need to come into they need to intervene, madam. The government needs to intervene. We are really suffering. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a very enlightening session. I think in summary, we need to know that it's progress over profit. It takes time. It takes time. It takes going back and forth in many cases. We can't start business today and expect profit tomorrow. The same way, when a businesswoman starts, she needs to be groomed. We need to actually go back to the grassroots and start to develop them. But as we're doing that, we're gaining information. Those who are, they call the elites. I don't see no elites, but I think every business, every entrepreneur has a role to play. So let us start with that journey or go back and revisit the journey so that where we can develop, we push, we go back and say, no, this is not good enough. These people are not included. We have to develop these value chain at every stage. None should be left aside. And with the established departments and organizations that we have, we'll be able to make AFCFTA work. We're not going to ignore AFCFTA, no, but we start at home. You said something about, you said you gave a, doctor, you gave a Yoruba, well, tried to give a Yoruba proverb. We start at home. So each and every one of us from different countries, let us go home and start to develop our value chain. Then we can be useful to one another and we'll be able to make AFCFTA a success. Thank you very much to this esteemed panel and to the esteemed audience.
It's a round of applause for them. A round of applause for them. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone. Let's have a group photograph before they step down with the president of OIT. Let's have a group photograph before they step down for the panel. Now we are going straight away to the next panel discussion, and I'm just going to reel out the names of the panelists so they will just get themselves prepared. After the group photograph, we're going to have the next paper presentation straight away, and then we have the next panel. We're not going to spend too much time anymore. Now, the next panel is on bridging the gender gap in accessing finance in national and regional trade. There's been a lot of conversation here about finance. How do women get finance to run these businesses? Because of course, for your business to work, you need monies to achieve so much. Now, the members of the panel, the panelists are, we have a representative from Zenith Bank. We have Ms. Adobe Trums, Project Director and Contract Compliance, GAC Invest Project Ghana. We have Mr. Desmond Alufohai, Director of Protocol and International Affairs Division, Miami International Airport. And we also have a representative from Shippers Council, Dr. Karimat Othman. So we have these people are the ones that would handle the next panel. And of course, the panel will be on financing, accessing finance. How do we bridge the gender gap in terms of accessing finance in national and regional trade? Now, the paper for this session, to herald this session, will be presented by Ms. Agnes. So we have her in, I'm being told we have her in the room already. So she's going to present the next paper for us to herald the next session, the next panel discussion. I don't know if we have Ms. Agnes Gitao in the room. Would like her to start proceeding to the podium for her paper presentation. Please, a round of applause for her as she comes forward. We're talking bridging the gender gap in accessing finance in national and regional trade. As we have mentioned earlier, getting finance on board is very critical and it is very important. So she'll be sharing her paper on that because, of course, just like saying you need water to run something. If you don't have monies to run your business, how then are you going to propel the business to the level you want the business to get to? So we have Miss Agnes Gitao. Are you in the room? If we have Agnes Gitao in the room, it is time for your paper presentation before we proceed into the panel discussion for the day. She's talking about finance. I don't know if we also have the representative from Zenith Bank in the room. You are supposed to be part of the next panel on accessing finance. It is important to have the banks, of course, in the room when we are talking about access to finance. There's been a lot of information, a lot of talk around accessing credit for small businesses in Nigeria. We have millions of MSMEs in the country, and it has been said that these MSMEs are the engine room that the economy thrives on. And women play a significant role. Women play a major role in the MSME space. So we are going to, as we wait for Ms. Agnes to come forward for her paper presentation, she's going to be throwing light. She's going to be shedding light to how we can bridge the gender gap in accessing finance in both regional and national trade. Okay, she's here. Agnes Gitao is here to give her presentation on bridging the gender gap in access to finance. You're welcome. Okay, we want to thank one word for 1 minute as we put Ms. Agnes' presentation up. I'm coming to her, so she's just going to say hello to us, so we'll also get to know her. Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. Hello. Beautiful women, hello. I just want to greet you. My name is Mrs. Ifeoma Anyanwu. I'm a deputy director in charge of gender and gender mainstreaming issues in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. I represented the Honorable Minister yesterday. The President has just told me to say one or two things to our women. Yesterday, hello. Yesterday, I told the audience that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development has just produced and launched the National Gender Policy in Agriculture. And this document has 11 objectives. And if you want to address the challenges women face in agriculture, it is through the instrumentality of policy documents. You cannot address challenges women face in agriculture, in trade, across board without a policy direction. I brought some of the copies, I think 40 copies of it. I've given it out, it will be shared. This policy has 11 objectives. We have just started. This year alone, we went to 6 geopolitical zones to train women cooperatives on gender and climate change. You know, gender and climate change is a burning issue in Nigeria because of the effect climate change has on agriculture. Presently, we are going to work with women in Owita so that we collaboratively implement the policy. What we are now doing is we are going to mobilize women across states, not individual women, but cooperatives, and lead them up to funding, financial inclusion, because most women don't even know that there are opportunities, opportunities that are abound in agriculture, especially when it comes to financial inclusion. We are going to mobilize women, and I'm going to have the dossier, all women cooperative, all the women that attended this workshop. I'm going to collect it from the president, and I'm going to work with all of you. Yes. Again, we need to have a wide range of network. It is wealth. And of course, we are going to collaboratively empower our women. Empowerment of women is empowerment of all nations. We are going to bridge the unequal gender relation in the agricultural sector and even interest. So join me and let us together implement the policy. The copies are there, you'll be given. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Ms. Agnes Gitau is next now. Her presentation is up, so she would be speaking on bridging the gender gap, access to finance, national and regional trade.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm able to use this. While I wait for technical assistance, I just wanted to start by saying thank you very much for hosting us here in Abuja. Greetings from Nairobi, Kenya. It is my first time to be in Abuja, and I'm representing ATPC and GBS Africa. And I know you're already too tired of hearing about the barriers that you face, most of you face when trying to engage in trade finance. Thank you. So a couple of years ago, a group of us that, based on what the market was saying, a couple of years ago, we listened to the market to understand the challenges women face when seeking trade finance. We know that for us to be able to participate fully in Africa Free Trade Agreement, we must be able to address the challenges that women face, particularly in trade finance. Just to bring this into context, and you had this throughout the day, the importance of financial platforms as a solution to addressing the gap in trade finance. I think we all know, and I think you've all been hearing it throughout the conference, that women SMEs are excluded from trade finance. Perhaps for the benefit of doubt, I start by saying that trade finance is the short-term credit that is available to businesses that helps you mitigate risk that is associated with trade. And this trade finance comes in many instruments. One of those is letters of credit, supply chain financing, open account, and these help buyers and suppliers to be able to trade to trade effectively and efficiently across the border. And though stakeholders know there are challenges, though there have been so many initiatives to try and address these challenges, there is very little data to address these issues. So what we did between GPS Africa and UNECA is to try and map this data to understand what challenges are you facing, are you engaging with trade finance if you are, and how can stakeholders intervene in trade finance. So the research objective, as I said, is to investigate the channels and the demand for trade finance for SMEs in the formal and informal sector. We also wanted to establish and understand whether banks and financial institutions were biased when giving trade finance. Women were telling us we are trying to look for money to finance our businesses. However, we faced rejection. Also, we wanted to understand, and I think Marlies earlier on talked about the importance of digital inclusion and digital financial platforms. We wanted to understand the level of engagement in digital financial platforms at SME level. And hopefully our finding will help us provide policy recommendation to inform policy and dialogue for the policy side. So we started our research by reviewing the literature, looking at data that was available. We realized there was so much data from the banking side, but there was very little data from the demand side. The literature review helped us to inform our research hypothesis and also help us to focus on areas for primary data collection. We did some interviews and questionnaires, and I'm grateful to Allwith Nigeria and other organizations that helped us access women SMEs in your membership. We looked at 5 countries, but so far we've only covered Kenya and Nigeria. Research is still ongoing in South Africa, Rwanda, Ghana. Our key findings, perhaps most of you already know this since you're already engaged in trade. We discovered that SMEs are likely to self-exclude from trade finance. So a majority of you know that trade finance exists. However, you don't go to the bank to borrow money, right? So what this means that there is a business case for financial banks or suppliers of trade finance to engage with SMEs. Out of the women we surveyed, 77% of SMEs knew there was trade finance, they had bank accounts. However, only 4% had applied for trade finance. And I think that's very interesting for leaders of various organizations represented here. When your members tell you that they're struggling to access trade finance, perhaps you need to go deeper and understand what sort of instruments are they engaging in. Actually, are they approaching their banks for trade finance? Also, what we found, we did a bit of survey, some questions to try and figure out whether these businesses were engaging in digital platforms. So the businesses told us that trade finance was very critical to their businesses, and also that when they lacked trade finance, it heavily impacted on their businesses. Yet, only 4% applied for credit from commercial banks. So we went further to try and understand the barriers these SMEs faced. So one of those, and I think you've heard it over and over again, it's high interest rates, difficult collateral requirements from banks, lack of knowledge, and I think you've talked about lack of knowledge, financial literacy, lack of information where to go to access this instrument. Also, particularly for women in the agriculture sector, there are rarely no banks. And I think it was reassuring for me to hear an intervention earlier when one of the ladies talked about going to the market, bringing the banks to the market where these women are. And that, I think that it shows the innovation and creativity amongst women to try and address these challenges themselves. So were women aware whether there were trade finance offered by their banks? So one of the challenges highlighted that they didn't have information, right? But it was quite interesting to tell that 72% of businesses in Kenya said they were aware that their banks had trade finance. 42% of Nigerians told us that yes, they knew their banks were offering trade finance. However, the 4% that applied, most of them were facing rejection. And the kind of money they were looking for is about less than $50,000 US. So it shows you the size of this business is pretty small in the SME sector. So what were these women doing to address, because everybody needs capital for the business, right? What were they doing? What we found is we're being very creative and they were looking for alternative channels of trade finance. So the finding tells us there are alternative channels of trade finance. Some of them is digital, some of them went to digital creditors, particularly the businesses in Kenya, friends and family, which was very interesting. When I was going through the responses, I was wondering, what kind of friends do I keep? Because none of my friends had given me money, but according to the Kenyan and the Nigerian SMEs, women were going to friends and family for trade finance. You can imagine the risk associated with this. Financial risk if you're lending or you're borrowing for your neighbors or your family, but also social risk associated with such. So that gives an opportunity for banks to intervene. So friends and family, informal sector lenders, these are Shylock or informal loan lenders who are also not regulated. Again, that's a risk for women SMEs. Again, stressing further on I'm on slide 13. Thank you. So going further, it just shows, and just for information, we surveyed both men and women, and you can see at least women were the ones seeking money from friends and family compared to the male businesses. Go on. Yeah. Yeah. Next. Thank you. We also try to investigate their engagement with e-commerce. And again, earlier we talked about the digital exclusion. I was very surprised to see WhatsApp and Instagram and Facebook used as a model of business. I never knew. I think I was quite naive. I didn't think WhatsApp or this platform were used for businesses. They were founded for social networking, but not business. But it's quite interesting to see that there are women and SMEs are quite creative. They're using this platform not only for their social network, but also to do business. And that also speaks of the creativity among these SMEs, and also the length they will go to try and address issues of trade finance. So what are some of the recommendations? And I know some of you will have this recommendation and you're probably tired of hearing this is what we recommend. And I know somebody earlier talked about what are the practical takeaway, what can we do? I think for us, this is just early data. As I said, we're still continuing to collect data in the 3 countries that are remaining, but we've come up with a few recommendations which we hope we can take forward. One of those is to support an inclusive and evidence-based approach to advancing access to trade finance and also to digital finance. And that's a conversation to be had. Also, the regulatory support for cooperative and informal sector lenders to allow them to be able to lend to women SMEs. Banks are regulated, and they will say for them to be able to give to SMEs, they have to live up to the regulation. Another recommendation is opportunity for innovation through digital financial platforms, again, to address the gap. Another one, which I thought was quite important for us to share here, is the importance of co-creation ethos, working with women SMEs to create products that are relevant and effective to them. Most of the time, stakeholders will go and come up with the solution themselves without really engaging the women who are actually engaged in business. I think it's good to communicate, but also demystify the financial lingo. Women need to understand when you talk about letters of credit, when you talk about supply chain financing, what do you actually mean? Make it simple, translate it if you can into their own languages so that you're able to, if you're really interested in addressing their challenges. Again, intended and targeted framework to support SMEs as fast as possible. And as I say, these research is continued work between various organizations. I do hope that once we have completed, we can be able to come up with this targeted policy recommendation. Educating SMEs, digital and financial literacy skills. One of the critique to our early finding was challenging us. So you give women trade finance, right? It's short term, it's about 60 to 90 days. What happens if they don't have these financial skills? What happens if they decide to go shopping in Dubai and not actually use that money for what it's meant to? So it's important to have financial literacy skills. And I guess it's honors on the member organization represented here to support women towards, to support their members towards this. Also, policies towards de-risking trade finance transaction. We know that IFC and other input banks have been lending to commercial banks for them to lend to SMEs. However, SMEs are telling us we don't see that money, right? Also, academic research into gender disparity in SMEs trade finance. There's a lot of data on trade finance, but mostly it's from the banking side. There's rarely data that is from women and also targeted to the women SMEs. It's an opportunity. I think this, hopefully what we come up, what the result will tell us, I think it gives us a great opportunity for digital finance providers to use big data and artificial intelligence to develop trade finance products for SMEs. I think it's about products that are targeted, that are relevant, and that are affordable. I think interest rate was one of them, are affordable for women SMEs, and also for businesses themselves. I think, and that's what you'll hear all today, the power of networking, speaking to each other, coming up with harmonized policies or signing up. And I think somebody talked about earlier about MOUs, agreeing to work together, the power of network. Your network is your net worth, sharing information and also educating yourself. You know, go out. There are always people willing to support and work with SMEs. And finally, for me, if STFTA is going to make sense, we have to be, say, deliberate in providing solutions for women, and particularly women in the formal and informal sector. I couldn't leave Abuja without really borrowing a quote from Shehu Musa Yadwa, who said, "No nation has been able to achieve greatness unless and until the great majority of its citizens, regardless of their status or background, have been allowed to freely participate in the development process of this nation." And I think that's the conversation we are all here. I think if we are really serious about getting women to participate in the economic activity, we have to move away from the talk shop, the high profile talk shop, and get into the market and support them. I am available for any questions. I'd say this is just really exploratory. It's very early data. Hopefully, we do hope when we've analyzed data from the other countries, we'll have more to share with you. I thank you for your time.
A round of applause for her, please. Thank you so much. Thank you. Talking about finance, the challenges women face in accessing finance, and also the work they have been able to do at UNECA. Miss Agnes Gittel, thank you for that paper presentation. I'll go straight away and invite the panelists forward. Now we have, part of the panel is a representative from Zenith Bank. If you're in the room, please make your way to the podium. Then we have Ms. Adobe Toombs, Project Director and Contract Compliance, GAC Invest Project, Ghana. We also have as part of that panel, Mr. Desmond Alufohai, Director of Protocol and International Affairs Division, Miami International Airport, is joining us virtually. Also, we have a representative from Shippers Council on that panel. Please, if you're here, please make way to the podium. It's time to talk about issues on accessing finance, bridging the gender gap in accessing finance in national and regional trade. I'll just call on our panelists once again. A representative from Zenith Bank is supposed to be on the panel. Also, we have Ms. Adobe Toombs, Project Director and Contract Compliance, GAC Invest Project Ghana. Desmond Alufohai is joining us from Miami. Now, the moderator of this panel is Ms. Angela Ajala. She is the moderator of the panel today. Angela Ajala, please, are you in the room? Okay, here she comes. Please, a round of applause for her. She is moderating this panel for us today, talking about bridging the gender gap in accessing finance in national and regional trade. Do we have the, I know the representative from the Shippers Council is in the building. Please, ma'am, wherever you are, it's time to move to the podium. It's time for your panel, because I know I had a conversation with them shortly after we were done with the tea break. Is a representative from Zenith Bank with us now? If you're here, please kindly move to the podium, or whenever they come, we would also have them join the panel. I will just hand over the microphone to the moderator. She will just give some opening statements while we'll get the other panelists to join her.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, very distinguished women leaders and business executives represented here. Thank you for being part of this very exciting and very necessary conference at this time in Africa. We're going to be looking at what we call in Nigeria the cocoa of the matter, money. That is the cocoa of this matter. And we're happy with the lead paper that has gone ahead to actually dissect the paper for us, to let us know that the problem is that women SMEs are excluded from trade finance. It is a problem. Without money, there are a lot of things we cannot do. So we need to start to become creative about seeing how our women can succeed in their businesses locally first. I call the tail end of the value chain talk. And I caught the moderator talking about building from the home front. It is when you build on the home front, then it is easier to begin to now export across the region. And so it's important that we begin to look at how that will be and how creativity has been. It's as if the banks have been set up not to support us, clearly. It's a major setup. And we need to challenge that setup. We need to have those conversations with them. To get a loan from a bank is like a needle go, is a camel passing through a needle hole. It's that difficult, the requirements and all that. So we need to begin to see, what do we need to know? What are we not getting right? Where are the barriers? What are the problems? Country by country, to see why this is difficult for us. In Nigeria, I think it's been a traditional kind of thing because it has been steeped in collateral. Many women don't first start off in owning a collateral. We're just beginning to get into that space to know that that is a major requirement. And so what can stand in the place of collateral? What are the things we can begin to see? If the banks are not going to be able to be the solution to our problems, what are the solutions we can begin to look at? Are there going to be ways of setting up endowment funds for women? Are there going to be direct interventions from CBN, the apex body? Are we going to make a case? It's time to have an advocacy clearly alone on this till we can achieve the success we want to see. Together and have a common voice on these issues on access to finance. It is our problem. So if we're not speaking with one voice, we will keep going round in circles. And then just a few will be able to pull themselves out. So you only see a few operating at the top, making it, and then majority, 90% are at the bottom. That is not the desire. So it's a global market out there now. I Googled recently all the top CEOs of banks, and I noticed that about 10 were women. 10 women are CEOs and MDs of banks in Nigeria. And so that is a great one for us. And so we ought to begin to have those conversations. We have women leading in SunTrust, in Lotus, in Citibank, in FZDA, in Unity, in Fidelity, in GT, in FCMB. Women are the MDs and the CEOs there. And so what are the things we are looking at to make it begin to happen? Then on our own part, what should we do? What is the education we need to do on our own part? We need to have a financial checklist that propels us and prepares us for export in this new after we're looking at. That checklist, you must put it and be able to tick it as you prepare yourself for it. I remember about 20 years ago, when I was wanting to get loans, I wasn't ready for a loan, but I used to hear then that GTB, it was impossible to get a loan through them. And so I went to them and I said, I need a loan. Can I have, what do I need? What do you need from me? They gave me the checklist. It took me 3 years to put it together, but I didn't need the loan, but I was preparing for when that time will come. So let's begin to prepare for when this time will come, that in the next 2 years, regional trade will not be by mouth, but will be something that is actually happen. And so as we welcome the panel, we hope we'll take practical solutions home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A round of applause for her. That opportunity that you're seeking, let the opportunity meet you prepared. It is very important. Beyond saying we want opportunities, if they drop the opportunity at your table now, would you be able to harness it? That's the big question. Now we have the representative from Zenith Bank in the room. Please, we'd like you to come up to the podium and join us. A round of applause for them, please, as they come forward. Also, we are still looking forward to the Shippers Council representative to join us on the podium. If you're in the room, kindly proceed to the podium and join us on the podium. So I'm going to hand over the microphone to the moderator. We have Aisha to Ibrahim. She's the representative Shippers Council. Aisha to Ibrahim, ma'am, if you're here, please move to the podium and join all the panelists and the moderator as we delve into the cocoa of the matter, as the moderator calls it, the cocoa of the matter, money. Money is always the big elephant at the center. So I will just give it to the moderator. She is going to take it up from here. I hope we all have questions around finance for them. That's why they are here. They are here for you. So if you have something that you've been thinking of, or you went to a bank and they told you you can access this, you cannot access that, please ask them. They are here to, of course, guide us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's going to be an interactive session. And I'm happy that Zenith Bank is comfortably seated so that they will represent all the banks as we find out what are the things, because what we want to do is we want to begin to see what can work to close the gender gap. What can work? One of the things that is not working, I know that many of the banks have what they call an SME desk, a woman officer or something. It's clearly not working. It's not functional. It's the bureaucracy does not make sense. The time limits they use in answering you and all that. So if that is not working, are there things we should know ahead of time before we begin to approach them? So they don't make us look as if we don't know what we're doing and we just keep going back and forth, knowing fully well so that we know that you give us a checklist of 20 items. Those 20 items, when we submit it within 90 days, within 30 days, the money will drop or it will not drop. Just when you are finishing one, they bring another round and tell you something else. I'm happy Zenith is here. I try to access the loan through them. After I thought I had done everything, my officer asked me, do you know the MD? If you know the MD, that's the final thing you need to do. I mean, what else can you do? You know, I'm happy they're here, and I'm happy we're having this discussion because we want to take action. We want to know what we're doing wrong. We want to make sure we're doing the right things so that we can move forward. And so before I ask the Zenith Bank to give us maybe in 2-3 minutes what is available for women, what Zenith Bank is doing to close the gender gap, what are their requirements that we should be looking at. They have a product called the Z Woman and all that. What's the success rate of that? I know a coalition, the coalition I belong to, I think the success rate we had was 1% or less. So there must be something wrong we're doing. So we want to start with the Zenith people.
Just before the Zenith people begin to talk, please, Ms. Carol, the advisor, please kindly join the panel so we can have a full house and attend to the questions from the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll allow each person on the panel to just open us up and let's hear what they want to say, and then we'll take it from there. Please get your questions ready. If we are preparing for the African Continental Free Trade Area, this is the last quarter of the year for your strategy paper in your business to be ready to see how you enter into that market. If you are not ready to enter into the market, it's also your strategy session for the year to see what you need to begin to do and give yourself the timeline to enter into the market. So, sir, you are welcome, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good that we'll have gentlemen in our midst. That gives us some comfort. It's not all women are fair. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Carl Akwarando. I'm a Deputy General Manager with Zenith Bank, and it's a pleasure and privilege to be here. And like Madam said, we should be ready with our questions. The nature of this session is actually for it to be interactive. I'm not going to speak like a banker. I'm actually going to talk like a business person because we know that banking business has moved a little bit. We are getting closer to the people, and in this case, the women. And then we're also particularly gender sensitive because we know that if we get it right with the women, things will be a lot better than what we have today. However, I want to make an observation. I realize that we keep using these two phrases interchangeably. Access to financial services and access to finance. I think we need to just clarify that a little bit. For me, women have access to financial services because we all have equal access when it comes to financial services, which cut across everything. In other words, yeah, access to, financial services that include banking, agency banking, or other forms of financial services. In other words, when you have your own funds and you want to conduct a financial transaction, you have access to the platforms that will facilitate that. That's, to me, the meaning of having access to financial services. Of course, on the other part, you have access to finance, and that means access to credit facilities to support your business. So, well, as a bank, I'm actually, since I'm the only banker here, I believe, so I'm going to just be a little bit generic about this. I know that most banks offer, similar services when it comes to financial services, giving you access, across the different channels and platforms. However, when it comes to but when it comes to access to finance, which is the cocoa, I understand. So I'm going to speak to that. First of all, I don't know the experiences some of you have had. Madam just shared her own. I find that a little bit uncomfortable because I know that you don't need to know my managing director to access credit in Zenith Bank. I can say that authoritatively. So she also talked about one of our products, specifically designed for women, having a success rate of about 1%. That's a little bit sorry. Oh, you are coalition. Okay, that's her experience. But I want to differ a bit because I know that it's something that has worked a lot better than that level of percentage. But like I said, I'm going to speak like a businessman. My mother was a businesswoman up to the age of 85 when she passed on 2 years ago. So I'm also coming from a background where I believe that women have not been given their fair share of access to finance in Nigeria. There are so many reasons, and we don't need to recount everything. But the moderator pointed out something, and that had to do with level of preparedness. How prepared are we to assess, this finance? Everywhere in the world, there are minimum standards, minimum prerequisites for you to assess finance. Irrespective of your gender, we do apologies to the women. And that is something that every one of us will need to aspire to get to, so that when we, don't forget that for a financial institution, whenever we're going to make a credit decision, there are 5 C's of credit that we'll consider. And believe me, they're actually cast in stone because they are universal principles. You need to have capital. That means what is it you're bringing on board? Very important. You need to have character. We used to think that, dishonesty was gender related. But I think, based on some of the experience some of us have had in the industry now, the default rate is not limited to the men alone. So it's an issue. So character is very important. Then you also have what is called capacity. Capacity is the ability to generate cash flow to repay facilities. Very critical, because to us, when we give you these loans, we expect you to pay, but they're not grants. Okay, 1 more minute. Okay. I've just been told I just have a minute. But okay, let me just quickly go through that. And then of course we have conditions which basically encapsulates what the conditions of the loan are all about. And then finally, collateral. You could see the order I placed it. It's deliberate. Collateral is down there. If the other conditions are met, the collateral becomes of secondary consideration. And I can tell you this because even with our product called Z Woman, which I said is targeted at women-owned businesses, we don't ask for collateral. We don't ask for collateral, and you can take up to 10 million naira. The collateral we ask most times had to do with insurance bond, which every one of us in business can actually have access to. So, but if the other 4 conditions in this case are met, you could see clearly that it's now going to be a lot easier for you to access credit facilities. And that's why, I agree with moderator completely. The level of preparedness is key. Are you ready? All the other forces of credit, how prepared are you? And that's why even as a bank, when we designed a program to support non-oil export called Zero to Hero, and it's actually targeted at the women who are interested in going into non-oil, export business. And of course, the SME, Grow My Business, which we also have, is also designed to hold your hands and get you prepared to be able to access the facilities when, you are ready. So I think I've exhausted my time, but I'm sure that we'll
my thoughts about it. I think that the banking sector has very many products
However, those products are not really accessible to women because of the challenges that women face, and especially in Africa. And reason is most women businesses are considered very small with very unattractive cash flows, and the management systems are not conducive for banks to lend. However, I always say that where there is a challenge, there is an opportunity. And I think that there's an opportunity for innovation. The policies that business women can look for. And this is a place where you can get your loan at a very reasonable interest rate, maybe 12%, which is about 1% per month, or even 11%, which is a very good way of borrowing. The second thing is that women are good savers. They have arrangements that they have in Kenya. We call the table banking, where you save and you borrow at an interest rate that you set for yourself as a group. This is another place where women can actually borrow, and these structures can actually be built into better structures, which become even different financial institutions that we can build for women. In Kenya, and I believe could be the rest of Africa, we have the microfinance banks and institutions. Those microfinance banks and institutions ideally were set up to assist the micro businesses. If you look at their source of capital, is usually extremely costly because their capital comes from private capital, and hence their interest rates are actually higher than banks. And so it defeats the purpose of why they were set up, because then that means if I borrow from a microfinance institution, I will pay a higher rate than I pay a banking institution. Then it defeats the purpose where they were set up. And I keep saying that they're not playing the part that they were supposed to play, because then they have very expensive capital, and because they have very expensive capital, then they have very expensive interest rates. So I keep thinking, what then can the government do? Because these institutions, the way they were set up to give loans to micro businesses, are not able to do that based on the cost, which if you pass it on to a woman in business, that means their cost of goods or cost of sales is very high. And then the product becomes extremely high and extremely unsustainable. So one of the things I have, we keep proposing is for government to think about different policies and procedures. And I think that Agnes has already spoken about that. And one of the things I always champion is a credit guarantee scheme for small business women, where money is deposited into a bank and de-risks this. We have one in Kenya, which is piloted. Unfortunately, he also did the research, and this research showed that this is not actually known to business people. We really need to think through how do we then help women. We have other facilities like a revolving fund where a seed capital is deposited. Women actually borrow from a revolving fund, which has different sets of rules and regulations. Because if we wait for the financial institutions to come up with innovative products, I think we will be waiting for a very long time. Like you have said, the 5 C's are already cast in stone, like the revolving fund, which could help come up with different strategies and structures to help women access finance.
Thank you very much. I would like to take a few questions now. Either just 1 minute to share if you've gone through anything, if there's anything you want the banks to hear. I'm also aware that the banks also, I mean, they have to follow their regulatory, the CBN and all that. But honestly, personally, I think we need to take our destinies in our hands. The banks are not the solutions. They are not. That's an example they've given of a revolving something, and how we can do it either through our organizations or through something. Something has to give if we want to pull up ourselves from where we are. If not, the banks have a lifestyle they need to fund. It will continue. I saw your hand up, man.
Brunel, commence par m'enlever les chaussettes là tout de suite. Tout de suite.
My name is Mrs. Elizabeth Walter. the CEO of Wendy Global Enterprises Limited. I want to share my experience. Few years ago, I embarked on a project in my village. So I went to bank and I withdrew money. Before I could reach home, the money they deducted from my account, I said, what happened? The money was too much. Then I called back. They said, Madam, you are not supposed to withdraw such. That the order is from the CBN. So the deduction was too much. I said, okay, now what should I do? He said, Madam, there is nothing. The order is from CBN. So I said, so you mean that a bank will take all this money from my account? He said, yes. The order, because of the huge amount I withdrew. I just kept quiet. I didn't do anything. I was just making noise. I said, okay, I will close this account. Then my account officer was begging me that I should please. I said, why didn't you tell me that I'm not supposed to withdraw such amount? So that one is first experience. Then the recent one was my corporate account. I was paying in without withdrawing. So like a few months ago, I went there to withdraw money. They say my money, pardon?
No, go on, ma.
They say the money, my account is in dormant. I say dormant for what? I just paid it not quite long. Why is it dormant? I say, Madam, you have been paying, you are not withdrawing. I say, my own money. They say, yes.
Thank you, ma.
So I couldn't, the process they gave me before they will reactivate it. I said, no. All these things you people need to tell us. So that's my experience. I don't really know. And that thing, it haunts me too much. My money is there. The process, I could not even meet it up till now. So I don't really know what to do. And I need my money, but I can't withdraw it.
Thank you for
Moderator,
sharing
should I
that.
just go around and we take all the
Yes,
questions?
please. Any questions? Yes, because I've been given a time to, by 2:30, we should be out of here. So we just want you to take the feedback and then put together how we can have better banking experiences. That's all we're asking. It's as if the banks are Shylocks. The percentages don't make sense. We don't understand it. So if you have a ceiling from CBN, should we be having this conversation with CBN instead and not you? We need to have those conversations so we know where we're going. Whatever feedback, let's put them together, is to get better. That's the whole idea of being here.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. All protocol observed.
Yanda.
I'm Deborah Topi, the National President's Rescue Diaspora Worldwide. My questions goes to the Deputy General Manager. He mentioned the fact that we can access 10 million naira without a collateral. So I want to know the basis of how we can get this money without collateral and the conditions behind it.
Thank you. I'm sure there's a document they can share because I'm aware of the Z Woman product. Is there something we're going to share to members for them to know? Okay, thank you.
There are more
Please take
questions.
the next question.
Please, let's try to be very brief, very, very brief. 30 seconds with your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rotero Imodu. Hello? Okay. I think that was about 6 years ago. I was listening to AIT and I saw the Vice President Oshibajo speaking, talking about the SME, that we have a huge money in Bank of Industry for them. And I was like, wow. And in my mind, I was like, this man have made my day. The next day I packaged myself. I didn't go through anywhere, as in I carried myself to Bank of Industry in Central area. Went to the bank direct and I met the receptionist and I told her why I was there. Then she directed me to the next phase and if I called someone to attend to me, then by the time the person was through with me, he said, you are not supposed to be here yet. I was like, I'm an SME. And from what he said, I heard from his mouth was the huge money is there already. Then the conclusion was this. The person told me, until I'm able to build my factory, that money will not be given to me. I was very frank and open. And I'm not this kind of person that pretend. I said, sorry, young lady, how do I get to building my factory with my teeth or how? Then I told her this was the level I was as an SME. Then she said, try your family member and your friends to build it. Then
First
we will
point of
bring that
contact.
money. Please,
Yeah.
what is the government doing to help an SME? We want to contribute. I know it's our business, but we are also giving beauty to the nation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, we'll take two more to round up.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Mine is really not a question. I want to contribute a little bit. And I'm coming from the legal angle. You see, the banks will not give you this money if you don't have your documentation right.
Correct.
And that's the beginning of it all. First and foremost, you have to be a legal entity.
Yeah.
Remember that monies that the banks have, they are investors' funds. They are other people's money. And so they are not just going to give it out, because you have a business. It's important first and foremost that you understand your business formation. What are you? Are you a limited liability company? Are you a business name? Are you an enterprise? I mean, there are categories for these things, and we need to understand it. What I would recommend and what I would ask OWIT to do is to set up a consultancy board or table for women in OWIT. So if you want access to finance, you go there, they look at your documents, tell you what is available, what you don't have, and even tell you the possibility of actually getting this loan, and then probably telling you what next you need to do to get to this level. So that's what I think, OWIT needs to do. Otherwise, we will talk about this thing and they will tell, and the truth is they have the money. The money is there in the bank. It's sitting there. But unfortunately, we can't access it because we don't have the things in order. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much, my sister. There are
think
instances
one
where
more.
the documentations are there and you still don't get it. Sometimes it is who you know, but it shouldn't be like that. And that's what we're saying. When I started my business, no bank wanted to touch me. 7 years after, sometimes they offer me services and I turn it down. Sisters, do your cooperatives. Write 10 names down and see if they can key into your businesses. I'm saying that we see Nigerian banks, they advertise on CNN.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money to advertise on CNN. They advertise on national dailies that are expensive. Then we do events like this for women at the grassroots. Give them money to an advertise as part of your CSR so that the women too can benefit. We know you have your terms and conditions, but don't say that we're going to support women businesses when really you're paying lip service. Ladies, we need to do it ourselves.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, good afternoon, organizers, moderators, and the panelists, and ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, in my own case, I'm coming from two perspectives. A situation where you have been given money at maybe 12%. You have not even settled in. The bank is writing you to say, oh, government policy have changed, so that your interest is moving from 12 to either 15 or 18. And the interest rate is already being calculated from that point. You don't change the rules in the middle of the game. Is that not what we are told? But, with the banks, it's not the same thing. So you wonder, so what do you have for SMEs to say, okay, yeah, this fellow here borrowed money at 12%. Let us leave it at 12% for the next 2 years or whatever the duration of the loan is, but that doesn't hold. Then I want to talk about some other thing again. My sister here spoke about sponsorship. Most often when women are doing program, you write to the banks. The bank managers who come to solicit for business tells you, oh, the order has to come from head office. There is nothing we can do. I moved into the rural area. I'm working with women in the rural areas. And every year we celebrate International Women's Day. And in the urban center is always a very big thing. In the rural community where I come, there are banks, banks. There's Zenith Bank, there's Eco Bank, there's Oceanic, there's Access, there's Guarantee Trust. They have all Guarantee Trust and everything. So I now got excited. I said, oh, you know what? I'm sure the banks will want to support us because they don't do this here. Have you ever done the International Women's Day here? They said, no, this is strange to us. I said, okay, then let's march to the banks. They will support us. All the banks, and I'm telling you now on a serious note, Zenith Bank is one of them. Guarantee Trust is one of them. First Bank is one of them. And which other bank? Access Bank. I've mentioned Access Bank. No one of them gave us 5,000 naira. And these women have banks, even though they're in the rural area, they belong to the national and the world at large. So you cannot be celebrating in the urban and refuse the rural people celebration. Please take that to your head office. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moderator, ma.
Last one. There's one here. Last one, because you took 3 there instead of 1.
Okay.
She's
Okay,
the
okay, ma'am.
last one. If we need to make the
Please,
time.
I'm going to bring in